Welcome back to the Isn't That Rich podcast.
My name is Jill Franks.
And I'm Ashley McVicker.
And together we're the marketing team at Farmers State Bank.
As young females in the banking industry, we love simplifying the confusing yet everyday questions that you have about money, such as,
how do I get my finances in order?
Where is my money really going?
How do I invest for my future?
How do I make my money work for me?
And can I really afford to build that new home?
These are the questions that keep us up at night. But the truth is, no one is born knowing how to handle their finances.
And chances are walking into a bank to ask someone about it is intimidating.
Whether you're a single person in your early 20s saving for your first home,
or you're an empty nester wondering what to do with your extra spending cash, this is the podcast for you.
And today we have a very special guest from our Farmers State Bank e-banking department.
This episode today, we are taking our guest behind the scenes and giving you an inside to the elusive Department of Electronic Banking here at Farmers State Bank.
Yes, and before we decided on who was going to be our special guest, and we were kind of talking about it, we decided on e-banking department, and I thought to myself, like, that department is the department that I know the least about in the bank.
Yeah, and
it's crazy because it's so important.
I would totally agree with that, and it's probably one of the most important, like you said. But let's just talk about what e-banking does. And I mean, we enjoy the fruits of its labor. Like, we love our mobile app and be able to have our bank accounts in the palm of our hand and all the ability that gives us. And we love that we can transfer money whenever we want to, all around the world. And we can make a deposit confidently and not concern ourselves whether the funds are actually being deposited in the correct account. But we don't realize that it takes an entire bank team to do that.
Right. So without further ado, I would love to introduce our e-banking specialist, Troy Graham.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for being here today. It's your first time on the mic, but there's nothing to be worried about. This will be fun.
So Troy, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself. I know it's like the scariest question anyone gets asked anymore, but if you could just give us a little bit of insight into your life, we would love to hear about it.
Well, my life is I'm about to have a 4-month-old. She's about to turn 4 months. She's a little girl. Her name's Willow.
Can you just imagine him being the best girl dad?
Oh, he's obsessed with her.
She likes to blow bubbles, and it's great. Been married for almost 5 years and been with my wife 9 years. So I love my family. We have Sunday dinner every Sunday. Even when there's no football, we still get together and do that. My faith is very important to me, and my family, and then sports, football.
Troy, you've been here at Farmers State Bank for what, 5 years? And where did you start out?
I was a teller when I first started and did that for about 2.5 years. And then I got moved to the e-banking department when Leslie and Charlie decided that we needed one. Leslie and I were the first ones to kind of start getting an e-banking department at the bank.
And what was before e-banking?
I don't think there's a department for e-banking at all.
So e-banking would be our mobile app and online banking?
People would still do that, but as far as having a group just dedicated to watch the app and try to help with fraud and try to make sure that everything runs smoothly, that really didn't have a department dedicated just for itself. And
wow.
Thank the Lord for Leslie, because she knows just about everything. So
she did and has been with the bank for so long. Like, when electronic banking started becoming a thing, she kind of took that on. But you were right next to her the whole time, and that's exciting.
And was that just something you started being interested in?
They were talking about it, and I used to work for Verizon, so I don't want to say I'm techie, but I've got a little bit of technology knowledge. So I just went ahead and started doing that and learning the systems and figuring out what we needed to do and how we needed to make it better. So.
And now you're head of the department.
Now I am part of the department. I have two of the greatest teammates, and Donna and Anna. They help me out so much with going over the reports and stuff that we do, and have to give both of them a shout out because they're actually the ones running it right now while I'm here with you guys. So.
And morning time is the busiest for the electronic banking department.
And we, it's a 3-day weekend. We have all those mobile deposits, which is, maybe this is getting a little too ahead of ourselves, but we go through each single mobile deposit that you guys make every single day and kind of help look at those, try to make sure they're not fraud or things like that. So we we go through and look at those. So since it's 3-day weekend, they probably got like 100 and something different individual checks to go through.
So Mondays and Tuesdays after a holiday are the busiest days for you. We'll say a prayer for Donna and Anna right now doing those reports. So let's talk about what a day in the life of the electronic banking department looks like.
Well, when we first get to work, we start running reports. That sounds super exciting, I bet. We run a lot of reports to make sure that individuals' online bankings aren't, accidentally tied to a different account number, because nobody wants anyone else to see their account information.
And how are you checking that?
So what we do is we run a form, and we'll go through and we'll type in the account number, and we'll make sure that that name is the correct name that's on the accounts with the online banking, just to make sure that your account isn't attached to like Jill's online banking where she can see it.
So every single account that gets open that agrees to have online banking, you run a report on that and make sure that it matches?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh man, think if that didn't match up and line up, and if there wasn't someone in the background checking, how bad that would be.
Yeah, have you seen that before where a name didn't match up to an account?
I have. That has happened.
So thank God you guys are on the back end watching that.
Everything kind of syncs together at midnight between us and the system. So then the next morning, I'm normally there around 7:30, 7:45-ish, and that's one of the very first things I do. So hopefully, if it does happen, it's not out there that long, but it's very rare. We have the greatest tellers and the customer service reps, and they always do a very good job. So that's very, very, very rare.
You're like that dual security, right?
It's always nice to know you have backup and someone else that's kind of paying attention and checking your work and stuff. We all need that. So it's nice to have that safety net.
And we know all about that, right? I don't know how many times I've posted something on social media or I misspelled something wrong. And I always thank God for Ashley and Jared for checking my work before it goes out in the public. So I get that. We all make mistakes. It's nice to have somebody that has your back. What else happens in the day of a life of an electronic banker?
We talked about the mobile deposits, going through every single one of those and making sure that they don't look fraudulent. There are different ways we can kind of check to see if there is something fraudulent with them or we think it's okay. We also do wires and send those out. We run a bunch of reports. We also, if anyone signs up for e-statements, we have to go in and manually set them up for e-statements. We check all of the transfers from like one account to another, or if you're setting up bill pays or things like that, like we check it to make sure that it did go through, and if it didn't, why, and how we can get that fixed for the customer.
So things I think are automatic aren't necessarily.
They are, and they work perfect most of the time. But if you're the person that it didn't go through, you're going to be a little upset. So that's why we check it and try to make sure to get out ahead of it before anything happens. Because if your payment's late or something happens, we want to make sure that we let you know as soon as possible.
You work with the tellers a lot, I've noticed, and you're always over at our branch or other branches. You're training them or teaching them something new, and you work with them a lot when there's a situation with a customer.
We go over a lot of fraud that we do with the customers that are our tellers and stuff to make sure that they are on top of it so they can help prevent it as quickly as possible. We try to train and go over everything: wire fraud, EFTs, mobile deposit fraud. We try to go over everything with them, yes. And just, it's a lot, but again.
And that's good that it's not all on you and it's not all on them, and that they're not transferring the phone to you 24/7 when you're trying to make sure other things are running smooth.
Well, and let's be honest, when we go into the bank or something, we don't want to be told, hey, hold on, let's make a phone call. Hey, hold on, let's do this. Like, we want to come in and feel like that person's taking care of us right away. So that's why we try to train our front staff with everything. Our front staff knows the most of probably anybody because they help do loan stuff. They help do fraud, e-banking. They do their own teller work. So, they have their hands in just about everything. So
we want to make sure they're all well equipped to answer those questions. So we've talked about mobile deposits and how we monitor all that. And we talked about every new account that gets opened gets attached to the correct mobile user. What other things are you working on right now?
One of the things we just got done is our tap cards, which I'm very excited about that.
So explain that to everybody, what a tap card is.
So let's say you go to Target, because it's weird, but Walmart doesn't allow this to happen yet. Yeah. But instead of having to put your card in, put in your PIN, do anything like that, you can just take your card and literally tap it on the screen at Target, and it beep, and you're good to go. So Paid and gone.
And that's so cool. And it's such a new technology that it's just being introduced. And when I was in Europe last year, and one of the things was that everybody had the tap card and it was fun. I used that with my credit card and it had it on there and I was able to use the card, and that new technology is exciting.
It started really with COVID and stuff. We didn't want nobody wanted to go in and touch the machines or do anything. Everyone was so worried. So Charlie, our CEO, was like, hey, we got to figure out a way around this, and I want to get the contactless card. So it took a long time for this project because chips for a long time, as most everybody knows, were very hard to find. So you had to wait months, like 6 to 8 months, just to get the chips, and then you had to get the cards, with the chips and everything. It was a long process, but it worked out perfectly. Now we got them, and you should swing by and get you one.
I have never heard of a debit card that's a tap card, so I think that's great that we have that option.
I think we're one of the first banks in our area to get it too.
Yeah, I think we are too.
The tap card changes nothing about your account.
Correct. It's all to your same account. It's just like you're swiping it and signing, or if you're just inserting that chip that we're all used to now. It's the exact same thing, but now instead of doing all that, you just literally tap it and go.
So I know one thing we were able to do at our branch was to print a card on the spot. So like a customer came in and needed a new card printed, we could do that right away. Can we still come into the bank and have a new card printed same day?
Yes. No one wants to wait to get a card in the mail. And that happens at a lot of other banks. But with farmers, you walk into the bank and you're leaving with a card.
Oh, that's awesome. We talked about this in a recent episode. There can be fraud when a debit card is sent through the mail if somebody else gets a hold of that card. So being able to come into the bank to print a card is so important.
That's why with your online banking and stuff as well, always check your accounts, always look at it. And on our app, you can actually turn your card on and off. So if you lose it or anything happens, just go to your app, turn it off, and you're good to go.
That makes me feel so much better because I know that I've misplaced my debit card a few times. Or if you think there might be fraud on your account, or if you're traveling, it's just a great opportunity to turn your card on and off on your mobile device.
Well, how many times have we lost it in our car? It's fallen between the seats and console, and we can't find it, and then we find it later on. Instead of having to get a whole new debit card number, you can just go into your app, turn it off, go search for it, find it, and then turn it right back on and go, instead of, well, now I got to get a new debit card number, and now I got to hook up Netflix and Disney and all the other things you might have on that card. So
yeah, and I've actually used that feature on vacation in Florida just recently. I use that credit card off and on feature.
Well, we got into the tap card conversation because of COVID. So how would you say that e-banking and banking have changed in general since COVID?
It's evolved so much just because nobody wanted to go into the banks. You didn't want to go through the drive-thru for a long time. So just in the last year, even kind of after COVID and stuff, it just keeps trending upward to do everything online. If you could do a mobile deposit, just take a picture of it with your phone and then it's in your account. I mean, why even stop by the bank? I mean, when you can do everything right there, you can transfer money from one account to another. You can pay your bills. You can do just about anything you want to on your app. We have person to person where you can just send them a little link and pay them money, kind of like Cash App, Venmo, things like that. We have our own. And just in the last year, we have went up 14.65% of how much that is used.
So person-to-person transfer. We've talked about it before on the podcast. Let's explain the process. Somebody wants to transfer money to somebody externally or internally.
Let's say we go out to lunch and you pick up dinner or lunch, and I want to pay you for that. I could just send you a little link through my app where you put in your debit card information, and then boom, just in seconds, it's in your account, ready to go. It's super secure because it's through the bank. It's through us. It's not Cash App, a third party or anything. It is literally on your Farmer State Bank app.
That's amazing. So we've talked about how things are changing so much. Everybody is going electronic. Like you said, nobody wants to take the time to stop by a bank anymore. They want to be able to do everything online. And that was even before COVID, but now, especially after COVID, people are changing the way that they are banking. And I think the electronic banking department from here on out is only going to grow. I think we should talk about ways electronic banking helps prevent fraud and what people can do to prevent fraud.
The most important thing that you can do to stop fraud is check your online banking account every day. Every single day, go in there, look at it. It's easy. You just go in there, spend a couple seconds, look over your transactions. You can view accounts. You can actually pull your statement up on your online banking if you're signed up for e-statement, so you can see every single charge, every single thing that's done. So with fraud, there are a lot of people that are very desperate. We've had people, just a little story, we've had people that have went online to get a loan, and through the fake loan people, they are like, hey, we need your online banking. We need your username and password. And if you give us that, we can go ahead and deposit that money into your account. No actual business is ever going to ask for your online banking username and password. We're never going to ask you for that. We don't know what your password is, but we can find out your username, but the bank's never going to ask you for those kind of questions. We'll help you reset your password, but we're never, ever, ever going to ask that. So we've had people that have came in, I gave out my online banking information. They deposited this money in their account. They gave me too much money, so now I need to send them a couple $100s. That's one of the biggest fraud scams there is out there. People will honestly just, if you have money in your savings and checking, they'll move money from your savings to your checking, hoping you don't notice that, and it makes it look like they put money in your account because you see something pending. And they don't actually take the time to look at it and go, well, why is my savings account $2,000 short? They just see, hey, there's pending in this DDA account, or checking account, so why do I, here you go. They'll send them the money.
Oh my gosh, I did not know that.
If they would help the world as much as they try to, scam people, we'd be doing a lot better. Fear and love are two of our greatest emotions that we have. So people will call, and a big thing is people fall in love online, and they'll start, hey, my boyfriend or wife or whoever they are, because we've been told that people have been married and they've never even met, because people get embarrassed about those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And they'll send them money. We've had people that we're going to fly. This lady was going to fly her boyfriend in, and in St. Louis, he got hit by a bus. So
ironic.
Yeah. Just so happened that day. So after she sent him $3,000 to bring him to Southern Illinois, he got hit by a bus, and then he needed a couple more $1,000 because he was stuck there in the hospital because he got hit by a bus. And you feel so bad for these people because you try to explain, you try to talk to them, and when we get into emotions like that, the first thing you get is a defensive reaction. Right. You don't want to hear the truth because you think you're in love, or on the flip side of that, they will scare you to death. And hey, here's a $3,000 charge, and if you don't put in your information right now, this is going to hit your account type thing. That's not 99 times out of 10. That's not how it is. Right. They just do that to scare you. We've had people that, the government, you have to send them $6,000 right now. Give them your routing number and account number. No, the government's not going to do it like that. They have better ways to do that type of stuff. So just don't let them play on your emotions. Don't let them, if it seems like it's a weird thing, just hang up with them, call the bank number. Yeah. Actually call the bank. Don't look at some weird number and think that's us. Give us a call and we can help walk you through that, and check your account and see if actually something's wrong, which is another reason why you should check your online banking all the time to see if anything is actually pending in there.
I think, too, we say this all the time. Call the institution or the company that's dealing with you, call them back. Like, hang up and just find their real number, dial it, and call it if you're worried that it's fraud.
Well, and it is different with us because we see this every day.
Right.
The normal person, especially in Southern Illinois, you wouldn't think that that's going to happen. Right. You would think, hey, I'm safe. We're in Southern Illinois. It's not a big deal. But it happens to everyone everywhere all the time. My grandmother, she got some charges from Sam's Club. Did you use my card? No, I would not use your card for this. Well, they told me you got to put in this. Do not put in your information. Don't worry about it. Just let it go. Check your statement. Look at your statement with your credit card or anything like that. Never, ever, ever give out your information. Yeah. Ever.
It's interesting because I had this experience with PayPal recently. I just received an invoice from somebody on PayPal that I've never met.
And they'll send you invoices. They'll have you buy Apple cards.
So you're telling me these fraudsters want me to go buy Apple cards?
Yes. And then scratch off the back, give them the information so that they can start using it. Yeah, I wouldn't do that, but it happens a lot. I've actually went into Walgreens in just Harrisburg, Illinois, and been like, guys, if you see someone buying this many, gift cards, like, maybe talk to them about it. Mm-hmm. And that is something that I think even people at Walgreens, Walmart, places like that, like, as long as you don't use self-checkouts, they are starting to see that and trying to stop people from buying so many.
I really want to talk about this fraud story, the lady with the car wrap.
So a lady came into Marion East and she had a check from a company that wanted to just pay her to drive around, get her car wrapped in detail for their business, and then go out and just drive it around. And they were going to have her or go ahead and have her deposit the check. And then they needed her to send them back like a couple $100. Obviously, the check was fraudulent. There was misspelling on it. One of our tellers actually caught that. Shout out to Macy. But she actually caught the check, noticed there was misspelling and stuff on it. Christine and I just so happened to be there, so we started looking at it and kind of talked to her, like, are you expecting the check? Are you, why are you getting the check? Different things like that. No business is going to overpay you and then expect you to send them money back. Like, that's not how things are done. So after talking to her and stuff, she was very thankful that we, caught that and helped her, because she would have been out all that money because she would have spent it or, cut something with it, and then she would have owed the bank that money. So that goes into another thing. When we ask questions about deposits or where you got this check, or if you're sending a wire, if we start asking you questions about, do you know the people? Do you know where you're sending it to? Have you seen the product you're getting? Anything like that. We're not trying to be nosy. We just want to protect you, because if I lost a couple $100, I know I would be devastated. So if some of these people are sending $10,000 wires for vehicles or things that they've never seen.
Yeah.
And once you send a wire or do something like that, it's guaranteed funds. It goes to this account. Those fraudsters pull that money out of the account and they're gone. And you're never going to see that money back. So just one thing I like to say is, if you're willing to lose this money, you're okay with the chance of you losing this money, then you can do it. But that's the reason why we ask all the questions. Because we don't want to be nosy. We don't want to get into your personal life, but we want to protect you. So I feel like that's our job.
Here's an example. So my dad visited us in Florida, and we had this conversation about banking, and he had recently sold a bunch of his farm equipment. And it was this guy down the road, and he brought in this large check to the bank. And the bank had asked him, like, where is this check coming from? What is it for? And he was frustrated because this banker, he's like, my banker asked me all these questions. It's like they didn't trust me. Like, they thought, whoa, I did not, like, this was unusual for me to bring in this large a check. And I just had to explain to him is that kind of what you said, Troy. Like, if you go and you cash this check and there's not sufficient funds, the bank has to go find that money and has to verify all of those funds. So the reason they're asking those questions, not to make you uncomfortable or to feel doubt or like they don't trust you, is just to make sure that everything's legit.
It's not for the government. It's not for anything like that. It is literally just to protect you.
So the electronic banking department does a lot of training with the front line to make sure they are well equipped when someone does approach them with fraud. So all these stories about fraud are coming down to the work you are doing and how to prevent it.
We try, like, on the back of checks and stuff too, just little things that you can look at on the back of checks. A lot of times they'll be typed out, like on our app and stuff. For mobile deposit, you have to put, for mobile deposit only, Farmers State Bank, and then sign your name. There will be like a stamp or typed out on there, and who has a stamp for that? Nobody does. We can also, and you can do this yourself, go into your online banking. The top left is your profile management. You can go in about the middle of the page and it'll say recent logins, and you can actually see who's where it's logged in on your account, like what IP address, things like that, like where they were out of. So if I see somebody around our area who's been using Apple, they have Apple everywhere, then all of a sudden a random it's from Texas and it's an Android phone, I'm going to be like, why did that happen? That's kind of weird. So that's a pretty good, detail that you gave out your online banking to somebody.
I just love that there's a person behind it. I think about all the technology moving forward and e-banking and even online banks now. It makes me wonder, how much security do they have? Do they have a whole company of people checking every deposit like we do?
Most, and again, there is us three that are checking it all the time, because it's not a one-man show. It's definitely all of us together. Part of the reason why we're the greatest bank in America. But bigger banks and stuff like that, it just flows through the system. They do their mobile deposit, it flows through. With us, you have less, and that's why sometimes it might be a little bit for you to get that money in your account. But we're going through and we're checking every single one of these checks. And it does take a little while because that's, there's a lot of things going on, especially early in the morning, and we try to get it done. But that's the reason why we go through all these little checks, and it may take a little longer than other banks or other things because we want to protect you. Because once that money is deposited in your account, that's your responsibility. And if it gets brought back or anything and you spent that money, then you owe us that money. So we're just doing that to protect you.
For sure.
Mobile deposits just in the last year has went up 18.38% of how much it's used money-wise. That's just in a year. From the time COVID started to now, it's got to be 30% more. Because, people are just constantly doing that. Again, you don't have to go into the bank anymore. Now, it's wonderful to go into the bank because you get a Coke or, Sprite, Coke, Diet Coke, Sprite, water.
That's right.
I've never done that being a teller for a long time. And you want to see our tellers, and it's a good thing to go in and talk to them. And that's a good thing about our bank is you get to form a relationship with people and have someone at the bank. So, hey, this is my person at the bank. I'll go talk to them and they'll help me out. So we're very blessed.
So if someone does fall victim to fraud, I know the electronic banking department is a big part of helping them. Can you explain the process of helping them?
The first thing, again, and I know I said this already, but turn off your debit card. Go to the app. You'll see your card on the left-hand side, manage card or card management, one of the two, how it's worded on your left-hand side. Click that and you can turn the card off.
If you turn off your debit card, does that turn off your account?
It doesn't turn off your account. You just can't use your debit card.
Gotcha.
And that'll stop more future charges from coming out. Once it's already been hit by Visa and it's already got a pending approval, there's nothing we can do to actually stop the charge.
Okay.
But you can prevent other things from getting hit on your card. If it is, depending on the company and stuff, the best thing to do would first be to try to call them and have them cancel it, stop it, refund your money. The next step after that, if that's not help, swing into the bank. We can fill out a fraud form with you and kind of help you go over that. We take care of pretty much all that. We mainly just need your signature to go over your statement with you. And then me and Donna and Anna, and I will give a big shout out. Donna does a lot of these. She will call the companies. She will email the companies. She loves doing it. She loves trying to get after them and get the money back. So she will go in and try to do that. We most of the time give the customer provisional credit so that they're not out the money right at that point until we get done with our investigation on our end. Because again, we can see if it's Xbox or something and you think it's fraud, maybe your grandkid did it or maybe your son did it or something. We do see things like that. So we can see the IP addresses, we can see things from where they come from, and then we kind of go from there. But
if you were to leave our listeners with one piece of advice or electronic banking tip, Troy, what would that be?
Check your online banking every single day. Use it to check your purchases with what you actually did and maybe with what you didn't do. But just check that all the time to make sure that you're one step ahead of the fraudsters. Because if you can prevent it right then and there, you don't have to worry about, coming and filling out a form.
I love it.
That's a great piece of advice. Well, thanks, Troy, for being on here today. I've learned so much information that I didn't know, and I hope our listeners did as well.
Troy, where can people find you to get a hold of you?
I am normally at the Harrisburg branch. I do go around and do training and stuff, but you can give the Harrisburg branch a call, 618-252-2600. Or my email address is tgraham, tgraham, @minefsb.com.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Isn't That Rich podcast. I'm your host, Jill Franks, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.